The syringe lay ready on a cold metal tray. Sarah Miller stared at the list in her trembling hand. 5 names circled in red. 5 dogs scheduled for release today. That was the word management insisted on. Release, not killing, not euthanasia. Just release. The clock on the wall ticked on, cruel and indifferent. 24 hours ago, she'd been called into the director's office. "We're at 153% capacity, Sarah," James Patterson had said, sliding the paper across his desk. "The county cut our funding again. These are the ones that have been here the longest with the least adoption potential." Now Sarah stood outside the steel door labeled Final Room. The hallway was quiet, the fluorescent lights humming faintly overhead. She pushed the door open, heart pounding. Inside, the air felt heavy. 2 German shepherds sat quietly in the corner kennel. The larger one, Max, had his body curled protectively around the smaller female, Bella. They didn't bark or whimper. They just looked at her, eyes full of calm. Quiet knowing. Sarah felt her breath catch. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. "It's not about how much time you have left, but who you spend it with." Max and Bella had arrived 3 months ago, huddled beneath an overpass during a spring thunderstorm. They had no collars, no microchips. Just scars, a limp, and an unspoken loyalty that couldn't be taught. Sarah knelt by the kennel. Max rose slightly, positioning himself between her and Bella, not with aggression, but with intent. His eyes locked on hers, amber and unblinking. A silent message passed between them. "If she goes, I go too." "I know," Sarah whispered. "I'm sorry." Standard protocol said they had to be separated before the injection. Sarah had done it before, clean, quick, detached. But her hand hesitated on the latch. Memories surfaced. Max refusing food until Bella ate first. Bella crying through the night until she was allowed to curl up beside Max. Their bond was undeniable. There. Unusually bonded, Dr. Reynolds had noted on their intake file. Emotionally, maybe even neurologically. Sarah checked her watch. James expected the list completed by end of day. But her hands wouldn't move. Her eyes burned. "Don't cry," she told herself. Not again. Suddenly, a voice called from the front. "Office. Sarah. Emergency on line 1. Dr. Reynolds needs you." A reprieve. Temporary. But real. She slid the latch shut and returned the syringe to the tray. Max's eyes followed her, steady, unwavering. "I'll be back," she told them. She didn't know if it was a promise or a lie. By the time Sarah stabilized the hit-by-car Labrador and finished her shift, dusk had fallen. Most of the staff had gone. The shelter was quiet. She walked the halls in silence, past kennels filled with hopeful eyes and heartbreak stories. The black terrier left behind by a moving family. The 3-legged beagle with an owner who couldn't afford post-surgery care. The blind poodle whose human had died in hospice. She stopped outside Max and Bella's kennel. The overhead lights were dimmed, but a soft security lamp cast enough glow to see them. Max was alert, eyes trained on her. Bella lay beside him, breathing slowly. "Hey, guys," Sarah whispered. Max's tail tapped once on the concrete. Bella didn't move. As Sarah watched her closely, something shifted in her mind, a feeling she couldn't explain. Then she saw it, a slight roundness to Bella's belly. "No," Sarah murmured, stepping closer. Her hands moved on instinct. She opened the kennel and crouched beside Bella, gently pressing her side. The subtle fullness was unmistakable. Pregnancy. Her heart pounded. How had they missed it? Bella's quiet nature, her age, the stress of shelter life, it had hidden the signs. "She's pregnant," Sarah whispered to herself. "Oh my God, she's pregnant." Max nuzzled Bella gently, as if he already knew. Sarah stood there frozen. The list, the deadline, it all fell away. They weren't just bonded dogs. They were family. Bars. It can't be. Bella turned, offering. Her profile and Sarah's veterinary training kicked in. The slight swell of the abdomen, the enlarged tits, the protective posture Max had maintained for weeks. Bella was pregnant. Sarah pressed her forehead against the cool metal bars, a sob catching in her throat. The irony cut deep. New life discovered hours before scheduled death. The puppies would be half-grown German shepherds, possibly inheriting. Their print scars, both seen and unseen. More unadoptable dogs in a system already overflowing. And yet Sarah fumbled for her phone, checking FedTime. 11:42 p.m. Too late to call James or Dr. Reynolds. Too late to officially postpone tomorrow's scheduled procedures. But not too late to hope. Hold on, she whispered to the pair watching her. Through the bars, just hold on. Morning arrived with harsh fluorescent clarity. Sarah had spent a restless night on the break room couch, her dreams haunted by needle-filled syringes and watchful amber eyes. She'd set her alarm for 5:30 a.m., determined to intercept James before the day's procedures began. The shelter director's Sansient Toyota pulled into the staff lot at precisely 6:15, as it did every morning. Sarah met him at the door, coffee in hand, a peace offering for the confrontation to come. "We need to talk about Max and Bella," she said without preamble. James accepted the coffee with a weary nod. At 58, with 23 years at Meadowbrook's helm, he carried the burden of countless impossible decisions in the lines of his face. "Sarah, we've been through this. The list is final. Bella's pregnant." The simple statement hung between them. James's expression shifted from resignation to disbelief, then to the familiar calculation that governed shelter management, resources, space, probability. "Are you certain?" "Examined her myself last night. My guess is she's about 6 weeks along." James sat down his coffee, pinching the bridge of his nose. "That complicates things. It changes everything," Sarah pressed. "We can't euthanize a pregnant dog. Actually, we can. It happens more often than you'd like to know." "James, think it through, Sarah. 5, maybe 6 more German Shepherd mixes. Large breeds that already struggle to find homes. Puppies that will need 8 to 12 weeks of care for they're adoptable. Vaccinations, spay and neuter surgeries." Sarah had anticipated this response, had calculated the counter-argument during her sleepless night. "What if I foster them, took responsibility for the puppies? Your apartment doesn't allow pets. My sister's place then." Emily Hasted fenced yard. "I'd handle all the expenses," James sighed, the sound of a man who'd had this conversation in various forms throughout his career. "And after the puppies are weaned, we're still left with 2 senior dogs that need to be adopted together." "Give me 2 weeks," Sarah said, the desperation evident in her voice. 2 weeks to find them a home, all of them. "If I can't," then Shackleton. Finish the sentence. James studied her for a long moment. "You're too attached, Sarah. This is exactly what I warned you about when you started here." "I know, but I'm right about this. These dogs deserve a chance." After what felt like an eternity, James nodded. 12 weeks, not a day more, and you need to clear your foster plan with Emily today. Relief washed over Sarah, followed immediately by the weight of the challenge ahead. 2 weeks to find a home for a bonded pair of senior German Shepherds. One pregnant with an unknown number of puppies in the equation. "Thank you," she managed. "Don't thank me yet," James warned. "You've just made your job a hell of a lot harder." As soon as James disappeared into his office, Sarah pulled out her phone. Emily answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. "Someone better be dying," her sister grumbled. "I need an enormous favor," Sarah said, explaining the situation. "I'm in a breathless rush." Emily's response was predictably pragmatic. You want to bring a pregnant dog and her boyfriend to my house, the house where I'm already fostering 3 cats for you. It's temporary. 2 weeks, Max. And if you don't find them a home in 2 weeks, Sarah swallowed hard. I will. That's not an answer. Sarah, please, I can't let him die. The silence on the other end stretched, broken finally by a resigned sigh. Fine, but you're buying me dinner for a month and cleaning the litter boxes. With the immediate crisis averted, Sarah turned her attention to the broader challenge. Finding homes for senior dogs required creativity, persistence, and luck. 3 resources. In short supply at Meadowbrook. She updated Max and Bella's online profiles, highlighting their special bond and impending family expansion. She created eye-catching flyers for local businesses, veterinary offices, and community boards. She reached out to German Shepherd rescues within a 200-mile radius, most of whom responded with sympathetic regrets about their own overcrowding. By afternoon, Sarah had exhausted her standard channels with nothing to show but automated responses and vague promises to keep them in mind. She sat at her desk, staring at the shelter's meager social media following. Just over 2,000 local supporters, most of whom had already seen and passed on Max and Bella's previous postings. Maybe we need to think bigger, Linda suggested, peering over her shoulder. One of those heartstring-tugging stories. Senior dogs found embracing before euthanasia, now expecting puppies. That feels exploitative. Sarah frowned. It is, but it also works. Remember that 3-legged cat last year? We had applications from 5 states after history went viral. Desperation made the idea more appealing than Sarah wanted Toadmet. She crafted a post with trembling fingers, including a photo of Max and Bella in their now familiar pose. Max curled protectively around Bella, their eyes conveying a depth of connection that transcended their circumstances. Senior German Shepherds. Max and Bella were scheduled for euthanasia yesterday when shelter staff discovered Bella is expecting puppies. These devoted companions who refuse to be separated have just 2 weeks to find a forever home that will accept their growing family. Please share their story. Sarah hesitated over the post button, feeling both hopeful and ashamed. This was the reality of animal rescue in the age of social media. Commodifying tragedy, manufacturing urgency, appealing to fleeting emotions that might translate to concrete action if they were lucky. Do it, Linda urged. For them, Sarah pressed post, then set her phone aside, unable to watch the inevitable trickle of sympathetic emojis and well-meaning comments that rarely translated to adoptions. The remainder of the day passed in a blur of routine tasks. Medications, feedings, cleaning, the endless paperwork that kept the shelter afloat. Sarah arranged transportation to move Max and Bella to Emily's house the following morning. Dr. Reynolds confirmed the pregnancy with a quick ultrasound, estimating 5 to 6 puppies and refining the due date to approximately 3 weeks away. Their timing couldn't be worse, the veterinarian remarked, running a hand along Bella's distended abdomen. Or better, Sarah countered. If I hadn't checked on them last night, the unfinished thought hung between them. As Sarah prepared to leave for the evening, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar local number. She answered cautiously, expecting another root call. Is this Sarah Miller from the animal shelter? The male voice was deep with the unhurried cadence of rural Virginia. Yes, this is she. Name's Robert Thompson. I saw your post about those German Shepherds. Sarah's heart quickened. Max and Bella. Are you interested in adopting them? Might be. I've got a ranch about 40 minutes outside town. Plenty of space. But I'd like to meet them first. See if they'd be a good fit. Of course, Sarah agreed quickly. Perhaps too quickly. We're open tomorrow from 10 to 4, or I'll come by in the morning. He interrupted around 11 if that works. That's perfect. Ask for me at the front desk. After disconnecting, Sarah found herself staring at the phone, afraid to hope. One potential adopter wasn't cause for celebration, especially given the specific challenges of Max and Bella's situation, but it was something. Our response within hours rather than days from someone local with appropriate space. She stopped by their kennel one last time before leaving. Max stood at attention as she approached, his posture revealing military-like training that Sarah had noticed before but never fully processed. Most German Shepherds shed an inherent dignity, but Max's bearing suggested formal training. Thieway. He positioned himself, his scanning gaze, his controlled responses. You might have a visitor tomorrow, she told them softly. Someone with a ranch. Bella thumped her tail against the concrete floor as if understanding. Max maintained his vigilant stance, amber eyes fixed on Sarah with unnerving intelligence. The first time since discovering Bella's pregnancy, Sarah allowed herself to truly imagine them in a home, running across open fields, sleeping by a fireplace, raising puppies in safety and comfort. The image was both beautiful and painful, a reminder of how closet they'd come to having no future at all. Just behave yourselves tomorrow, Shu whispered. No growling, no nervousness. Best behavior, okay? As she turned to leave, Sarah could have sworn. Max nodded, a slight dip of his noble head that seemed to say, we understand what's at stake. It was surely just her imagination, her desperate wish to believe these dogs comprehended their precarious situation. Yet, as she drove home, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Max and Bella knew exactly how much the next 2 weeks would determine. Robert Thompson arrived at precisely 11 Huntwick, his weathered F-150 pulling into the visitor's lot with military punctuality. Sarah watched through the front windows as he emerged, tall and broad-shouldered with the lean physique of a man who worked outdoors. Silver hair cropped close to his scalp, deep lines etched around eyes that scanned the surroundings with automatic vigilance. Mid-60s, Sarah guessed, though his movements suggested the vitality of a younger man. Mr. Thompson, she greeted him at the entrance. I'm Sarah Miller. We spoke yesterday about Max and Bella. His handshake was firm but careful, calloused palm speaking. To years of physical labor. Call me Robert or just Rob. Sarah led him through the shelter's maze of kennels. Noticing how he acknowledged a dog they passed with a respectful nod, never flinching at the cacophony of barking that assaulted visitors on Useto shelter environments. You have experience with German Shepherds? She asked. Had 3 over the years. Good working dogs, Loyal. His economy of words might have seemed brusque from someone else, but Robert's tone carried no impatience. Just the straightforward communication of a man accustomed to dealing with animals more than people. They reached Max and Bella's kennel. Unlike their typical alert greeting, both dogs were resting. Bella's head pillowed on Max's foreleg. At their approach, Max's eyes opened first, followed by a subtle shift that roused Bella. Both dogs rose to their feet. But where Sarah expected the usual excited approach to the kennel door, they remained still, assessing the stranger. They're usually more responsive, Sarah began. But Robert held up a hand. They're evaluating, he said simply. Smart. He knelt before the kennel, not making eye contact with either dog, presenting a non-threatening profile. After a moment, he made a soft clicking sound with his tongue. Not a command, but an invitation. Max's ears twitched forward. He took one step, then another, approaching with deliberate caution. Bella remained where she was, watching. The male has military training, Robert observed, still not looking directly at Max. Service dog, maybe police. See his stance? The way he positions between us and the female? Sarah blinked in surprise. We suspected something like that. He was found with Bella about 3 months ago. No collars, no chips. Mindy, if I go in? The request was unusual. Shelter protocol. Typically required initial interactions through the kennel bars, especially with larger breeds of unknown history. I'd need to come with you, Sarah said. Safety regulations, Robert nodded. Fair enough. Sarah unlocked the kennel door, entering first as she'd done countless times. Max maintained his position between them and Bella, alert but not aggressive. Robert followed, movement slow and telegraphed. He crouched a few feet away, palm down at his side. May I? He asked Sarah, indicating his desire to extend his hand toward Max. Go ahead, but slowly. He's protective. As he should be. Robert extended his hand, palm up, stopping short of Max's muzzle, the invitation to approach. To sniff, to decide. Max hesitated, then took 2 careful steps forward. He lowered his head, inhaling deeply, cataloging the sense of this new human. Sarah had witnessed thousands of dog-human introductions, but something about this one felt different. The usual nervous energy was absent, replaced by a kind of solemn recognition. You've seen combat, Robert said quietly to Max as if speaking to a fellow veteran. Haven't you, boy? Max's tail made a single sweep across the concrete floor, not wagging precisely, but acknowledgement. May I? Robert asked again, this time raising his hand slowly toward Max's head. Max held perfectly still as the man's fingers found the spot behind his left ear, then moved with gentle precision to examine the old scar that traced his shoulder. Shrapnel, Robert murmured, or close enough. Sarah watched in amazement as Max leaned slightly into the touch. Not the enthusiastic response many dogs showed to affection, but a dignified acceptance. How did you know? She asked. Recognized the training, the way he carries himself. Robert's attention shifted to Bella, who had remained at a distance. And her, we're not sure of her background. They were found together. She's pregnant, about 6 weeks along, due in approximately 3 weeks. Robert nodded thoughtfully. May I approach her? That's up to Max, Sarah said honestly. He's very protective, especially since it's pregnancy. As if understanding the conversation, Max stepped slightly aside, creating a path to Bella. While maintaining a watchful presence, Robert moved with the same deliberate care, settling a few feet from Bella and extending his hand as he had with Max. Bella's approach was more hesitant, her trust harder earned. She stretched her neck, sniffing from a safe distance before finally taking a step closer. Good girl, Robert murmured. No one's going to hurt you or your little ones. The interaction continued for nearly 30 minutes. Robert sitting quietly on the kennel floor, speaking occasionally in low tones to both dogs, observing their movements and reactions. Max gradually relaxed his vigilant stance, though he remained attentive. Bella eventually settled within arm's reach of Robert, accepting gentle examination of her swollen abdomen. They're special, Robert finally said, rising to his feet with the careful movements of a man familiar with old injuries. Not just any dogs, they are, Sarah agreed fervently. That's why I'm so desperate to find them the right home together. That would be wonderful, thank you. They settled on the porch, mugs in hand, watching the dogs' careful exploration. The morning air carried the earthy sense of approaching autumn, fallen leaves, distant woods, the last blooms of summer fading into memory. You military? Sarah asked, noting the precision with which Robert arranged their mugs, the economy of his movements. Marines, retired 12 years ago, 27 years of service. Thank you for serving. Robert acknowledged her thanks with a slight nod. His attention fixed on the dogs. Max was military too. Almost certain of it. How can you tell? The way he clears his space. See how he's checking the perimeter? That's training, not instinct. Robert sipped his coffee. And those scars, I've seen similar wounds on service dogs in Afghanistan. Hide fragments most likely. Sarah followed his gaze. Max had completed his initial survey and was now leading Bella in a wider circle. His movements methodical, nothing left to chance. If was a military working dog, wouldn't he have a tattoo or a chip? Should yes. But things happen. Dogs get separated from units. Records get lost. Robert's voice carried the weight of experience, especially toward the end of our time there. The withdrawal was chaotic. They sat in companionable silence, the unspoken horrors of war hanging between them. Sarah thought about Max, his discipline, his protective nature, his unwavering focus. Had he served alongside soldiers like Robert? Had Hess lived lives with those same keen senses now devoted to Bella's safety? I'm going to show you something, Robert said suddenly, setting down his mug. Wait here. He disappeared into the house, returning minutes later with a leather-bound photo album. Opening it carefully, he extracted a faded photograph and handed it to Sarah. The image showed a younger Robert in desert camouflage kneeling beside a German shepherd whose alert posture mirrored Max's. With uncanny similarity, this was Rex, my partner for 2 tours, best dog I ever knew. Sarah studied the photograph. He looked so much like Max. German shepherds have a type, Robert acknowledged, but it's more than that. It's the bearing, the intelligence in the eyes. He took back the photo, returning it to the album with careful precision. Rex died saving my unit. Found an IED that our equipment missed. Got most of us clear before it detonated. I'm so sorry. It was his job. He did it well. The simplicity of the statement conveyed more than any elaborate eulogy could have. Took me years to consider another dog. Didn't seem right somehow. Sarah thought about the timing. Robert's interest coming just as Max and Bella faced their deadline. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Is that why you responded to her post? Because Max reminds you of Rex? Robert considered the question, his weathered face thoughtful. Partly, but it's more than that. He gestured toward the dogs now resting in a patch of sunlight near the workshop. It's what they have together. That bond. Sarah followed his gaze. Even in relaxation, Max maintained his vigilant posture, body angled to shield Bella from potential threats. Their connection transcended ordinary companionship, something forged through shared hardship perhaps, or simply the mysterious chemistry that sometimes existed between beings. After Mary, my wife, passed 5 years ago, this place got quiet, Robert cottoned. Too quiet. Started volunteering with the VA, working with veterans dealing with PTSD. Found it helped me as much as them. He paused, seeming to weigh his next words carefully. About 3 years ago, I started bringing some of them here. Men and women who needed space to heal, the kind of quiet that helps, not the kind that haunts. Understanding dawned on Sarah. This is a recovery center. Nothing that formal, just a place where people who've seen too much can find some peace, work with their hands, reconnect. The revelation cast the property in a new light. What Sarah had taken for a simple ranch was something more, a sanctuary for wounded warriors, both human and animal. So, it wouldn't just be you adopting Max and Bella. She realized they'd be part of this community. Robert nodded. They'd have a job, purpose, being around people who understand what it means to carry scars. As if drawn by their conversation, Max rose and approached the porch, Bella following at her customary distance. The dogs paused at the steps, looking up with matching expressions of calm assessment. Come on up, Robert invited, patting the wooden boards beneath him. Max ascended first, moving with the fluid grace of an animal, confident in its surroundings. He settled near Robert, close enough for contact, but maintaining his independence. Bella joined them, positioning herself between Max and Sarah. They've already decided, Robert observed, What do you mean? They've accepted this place. U.S. the arrangement. He reached slowly to stroke Max's head, the dog leaning slightly into his touch. Animals know what they need. Sarah felt a wave of emotion, relief, hope. The tentative unclenching of anxiety that had gripped her since discovering Bella's pregnancy. Robert's ranch was everything she could have hoped for. Space, understanding, purpose. Yet a lingering doubt remained. The puppies, she began. There will be 5, maybe 6. That's a lot to take on. Already thought about that, Robert replied. Got a waiting list of veterans who could use a companion. Dogs with the right impairment can make a world of difference for folks struggling with a transition back to civilian life. The pieces were falling into place with a perfection. Sarah hardly dared trust Dotso. You're saying I'm saying I'd like to. Adopt Max and Bella. Give them a home here. Find good placements for the puppies when they're ready. His direct gaze met hers. If you think that would be suitable, it would be? Sarah searched for words adequate to the moment. It would be perfect. The decision made, they discussed logistics, the adoption paperwork, supplies needed before the puppies arrived, arrangements for veterinary care. Robert mentioned a local vet who specialized in working dogs and offered house calls for complicated cases. She served as a veterinary officer, he explained. Understands the specific needs of dogs like Max. As they talked, Sarah found herself watching the subtle interactions between Robert and the dogs. There was a quiet understanding developing. Already, Max's gradual relaxation, Bella's increasing comfort, Robert's respectful acknowledgement of their boundaries. When can they move in? He asked finally. The paperwork usually takes a few days, but given the circumstances, Sarah calculated quickly. I could probably expedite things. Maybe as soon as tomorrow or the next day. Good. That'll give me time to prepare. They walked the property together, Robert pointing out where the dogs would sleep in the house naturally and the fenced areas where they could roam freely. He showed Sarah the workshop where veterans gathered for projects, the garden they maintained. Communally, the quiet spots where solitude could be found when needed. This place, Sarah said as they completed the tour, it's remarkable. It's just land and buildings, Robert demurred. The people make it what it is, and now FedEx. And now the dogs, he agreed, a rare smile softening his features. As they prepared to leave, Sarah found herself reluctant to end this perfect morning. Afraid perhaps that some obstacle would arise to derail what seemed too good to be true. I should get him back, she said finally. Emily will be wondering where we are. Robert nodded, kneeling to address Max and Bella directly. You'll be back soon. Heddled them with the same straightforward tone he'd use with any sentient being. Place will be ready for you. The drive back to Emily's was quiet, Sarah processing the morning's developments while the dogs dozed in the back seat. Occasionally, she'd glance in the rearview mirror, marveling at the turn of events. 1 week ago, Max and Bella had been on a euthanasia list. Now, they were headed for a future tailored perfectly to their needs. Feshelter's phone was ringing as Sarah entered her office later that afternoon. Casey Winter's video had accumulated over 500,000 views, generating a flood of inquiries from across the country. Linda had created a spreadsheet to track the serious candidates, though most lost interest when they learned about Robert's application. You should see some of these offers, Linda said, shaking her head. A family in Seattle wants just 2 of the puppies. Not Bella, not Max, just 2. Perfect puppies. A woman in Florida offered to take Bella after she's done with the puppies, like she's borrowing a cup of sugar. Sarah wasn't surprised. The emotional response to the video rarely translated to practical solutions. People wanted to help, wanted feel they'd made a difference, but the reality of 2 senior dogs and imminent puppies deterred all but the most committed. Robert's place is perfect, Sarah told her colleague. You should see it, Lynn. Space to run. Other veterans who understand what Max has been through. They'll help place the puppies with people who need them. Sounds like a fairy tale ending, Linda remarked, almost too perfect. The comment echoed Sarah's earlier doubts. I know. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Don't borrow trouble, Linda advised. Sometimes things work out. That evening, Sarah completed the adoption paperwork, attaching notes about Bella's pregnancy and special requirements.